Until recently, technology and innovations were predominantly from the Western world, but China, Japan, Korea, and some other third world countries have broken the boundary. This trend has gradually moved to the African continent, including Nigeria. Even at that, little attention is paid to the sector. This week's episode of the program looks at science, technology, and innovations. Hello there, welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Gloria Umezuki. Is Nigeria ready to take advantage of local science and technology? Can Nigeria meet the standard of technology and innovations across the globe? How can we explore local technologies and innovations to improve the economy? Well, these are questions we hope that the Minister of Science and Technology will answer on this week's episode of the program. But first, what are the stories that made the headlines within the week in the nation's capital? President Muhammadu Buhari says he is determined to get to the root of the fuel scarcity in the country and prevent those behind it from inflicting hardship on Nigerians again. The president said this in his New Year broadcast on Monday morning while welcoming Nigerians to 2018.
For many, this Christmas and New Year holidays have been anything but merry and happy. Instead of showing love, companionship and charity, some of our compatriots chose this period to inflict severe hardship on us all by creating unnecessary fuel scarcity across the country. The consequence was that not many could travel, and the few who did had to pay exorbitant transport fares. This is unacceptable, given that NNPC had taken measures to ensure availability at all depots. I am determined to get to the root of this collective blackmail of all Nigerians and ensure that whatever groups are behind this manipulated hardship will be prevented from doing so again.
Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Petroleum, Mr. Kachikwu, has been explaining what led to the fuel crisis during the Yuletide. Speaking before a meeting of the Joint Committee of the Senate and House of Representatives, Mr. Kachikwu said the lack of sufficient reserve diversion of products are some of the reasons for the ongoing fuel crisis being experienced in the country.
Given the logistics constraints of NNPC to do 100% supply and the overarching burden on the institution, we need to free the marketers to do their business. To do that business, you've got to address the pricing issue. To address that pricing issue, we're looking at about 3 models. One model, for example, is at the time, we remember when we got the approval of 145, exchange rate was 285. Today, it is at 305. So even at a minimum, there is a gap there. Now, today, the exchange rate modulation, if you walk to CBN to do a modulation of what will it take to sell at 145, what exchange rate will it take to sell at 145 per the cost of purchasing this today, is about 240. It's not 285, it's not 305. So one mechanism would be to look at working with CBN in terms of a fixed exchange rate mechanism that enables them to stay at 145 sales at the pump price. If we do that, then they can import without the issue of price differences. And we can modulate that as the exchange rates and prices internationally move up. That's one. Second is we're also looking at a tax inversion. These individuals pay taxes. Is there a possibility, for example, to capture some of the tax they pay to account for some of the differential in importation that they would have before they pay their taxes? So it becomes basically a cost of business. We're looking at that. We're also looking at the potential, for example, of whether you could theoretically respect the 145 price and have a plural pricing system. So NNPC and all its stations and all its affiliates, about 400 stations all over the country, sell at the 145 so that the subsidy regime is respected. The pricing of 145 is respected. But at the same time, the private marketers are able to bring in their product at their own cost and sell.
Also, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Mr. Kachikwu, says the mandate of the President is to ensure that 145 Naira petrol pump price is maintained. Speaking at a media briefing, Mr. Kachikwu said there is no plan to increase the pump price.
We are not increasing price from 145 Naira. The essence of our meeting yesterday and the essence of the committee's meeting still going on, which began a few days ago, is to find mechanisms to ensure that queues do not come back to Nigeria, that there's a wetting of all the stations so there's product available every time for Nigerians, that private marketers who had pulled out of participation, that we deal with their problems so that they can participate effectively in the supply of refined petroleum products in the country, all within the parameters of the 145 Naira pump price. So I thought we should make this very clear. This is not a matter for speculation. Anybody who does speculation on this is not being helpful to Nigerians. They've already gone through a very difficult Christmas period. We're working night and day to try and find solutions. It is not a political issue. People should step out of that goalpost. We want to provide support to Nigerians. We want to provide product at 145 Naira. That is the presidential mandate. That is the Federal Executive Council mandate. Nobody is having a deliberation on that.
There is no suggested dual price. What we are discussing here is how to make product available at the price of 145 per litre. Nothing outside that. Nobody actually supported or submitted dual pricing. So I think that should be made very clear, and I think that is the mandate that this committee and other stakeholders are discussing, is to make product available at the existing price of 145 per litre.